Shabbos Daf Kuf Lamed Beis. Today's email comes to us from Moshe Hirsch. Dear R Eli, thank you very much for the chart. I always knew they're good and it helps, but today you really showed how much it helps. It makes it sound so simple when you make a chart like that. Thank you for all your time and effort you put into all the charts. I'm sure 7:15 is a good time for most people. He's referring to, we do a Zoom share for the Americans at 2:15 Eastern Standard Time. We're thinking about moving it to the morning, somewhere around 7 o'clock, 7:15. He says 7:15 is a good time for most people, but I have a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old, and mornings can be kind of hard. But we really try for me to listen to the share live. Sometimes we all listen together. See below, Moshe Hirsch. If you'd like to weigh in on this and let us know what you think a good time for most people is, please send us an email. The Gemara talks about 4 sources and opinions why it is that Bris Milah pushes off Shabbos. You can perform Bris Milah on Shabbos. First one is Zula. Halacha Moshe Misinai, he says. Moshe Rabbeinu received this from Shamayim. That's very problematic. The Shloshes Midos, a Kal V'chomer, cannot be used on Torah Shabbat, only on Torah Shabbat. Yet, Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah has a Kal V'chomer. If I'm Mechal Shabbos for Bris Milah, which is one Aver, certainly I should be Mechal Shabbos if it has to do with the entire body for Pikuach Nefesh. The problem is, you're using Kal V'chomer against Halacha Moshe Misinai. That doesn't work. And we see the same thing. Rebbe Kiva said a Kal V'chomer to his Rebbe, Rebbe Elazar, and he says it doesn't work because Halacha Moshe Misinai. What's the Kal V'chomer? If a Nazir becomes Tameh from Tumas Meis, he has to restart his entire Nazirus, shave his head, start the count again. Rebbe Kiva wanted to say that applies also if he touches a Revius blood. Why? Because if a person is in a oil hameis of a Revius dam, he becomes Tameh. If he is in an oil hameis of a kazayis, a etzem kisaira, a bone the size of a barley, he does not become tameh. So you see that blood is more powerful than an etzem. So if an etzem restarts the nazir, certainly blood should. He says no, you can't make such a kavachimer because the whole idea of etzem kisaira is halacha mishum Sinai, and it doesn't work. Rav Nachman Yitzchak has a third pshat. We learn Xeris Shava, actually a second pshat. Xeris Shava, 3 words by Milah, 3 words by Shabbos that are identical. Ois, bris, doiros. And it teaches us that Milah pushes off Shabbos. Rebbe Yochanan says the third pshat, Bayoim. You should perform Bris Milah on that day, regardless of the day, even if it's Shabbos. And we have a brisa that backs up Rebbe Yochanan, and the brisa adds, how do I know that Bris Milah shouldn't be performed at night, only during the day? Because it says, Uven Shmenes Yomim. But if the word Bayoim tells us that it pushes off Shabbos, so perhaps Mechus Kippurim, Zav Zava, Mitzorin Yeledes, who went to the mikvah for their tumah, but still have to bring a carbon, maybe that carbon should be brought on Shabbos because it says the word Bayayim. That word Bayayim comes to teach us that you don't bring a carbon during the day, during the night, only during the day. Now, it also says by Mechusri Kippurim Uvayim Tzavaisai. The Gemara says that Mechusri Kippurim, Zav Zava, Mitzarin Yeledes, the Torah had Rachmanas on them. The Torah said if they don't have enough money, they could bring a bird instead of an animal. So the Torah took them out of the category, and perhaps they should bring a carbon even at night. Not only that, once they're out of the category, maybe a Yisrael could perform the whole Akrava, maybe a Einan could perform it. But the Gemara says no. Once the Torah says Bayayim, that it must be performed during the day, that means the Torah brought it right back to where it belongs, and you can't learn anything from it, and they're not different than anybody else. Rav Acher bar Yaakov says a fourth and final pshat. It says Shmini, on the 8th day, regardless whether it's Sunday, Monday, or Shabbos, you have to perform the Bris Milah. But the Gemara pushes that off, and the Gemara says, I need to tell you, Shmini, that you don't do a Bris Milah early. You can't do a Bris Milah on the 7th day. Or I would think that once the baby hits 8 days, then it doesn't matter when you do Bris Milah. You can do it on the 9th, 10th, 11th. Kamashmal Shmini, Dafka Shmini, it's the best to do it on the 8th day. The Gemara brings a brisa that's like a brain teaser. Very hard to understand. The Gemara has a Havamina, then goes back to maybe not, maybe yes. Wishwashi. Rav explains it beautifully. Rav explains the brisa. The brisa had a Havamina that Milah should overcome Shabbos because we have a Kal V'chomer. And that is, Milah is more powerful than Saras, because if somebody has Saras on his bris, you still perform Bris Milah. And Saras is more powerful than Avodah, because if all the Kohanim have Saras, you don't perform the Avodah, you don't bring a Korban Pesach. And Avodah is more powerful than Shabbos. In that order, 1, 2, 3, 4. You still bring Korbanos and Shabbos. So that, therefore, Milah, number 1, is certainly more powerful and should override Shabbos. Says Gemara, but perhaps we didn't learn this right. Maybe Tsaras is not more powerful than Avodah. Maybe number 2 is not more powerful than number 3. The reason is technical. I don't tell a kohen to remove his Tsaras on Shabbos because anyway he wouldn't be able to perform the Avodah on Shabbos. You have to wait until you go to the mikvah, which is the following day, that night, and then the following day you can perform the Avodah. Therefore, I need a special pasuk by Yaim to teach us that Milah pushes off Shabbos, like Rabbi Yochanan said. There's another similar brisa that Rav explains similarly. The brisa says Yimo b'sar lasai, that you should perform bris milah even if a person has tsaras. And the Gemara goes, but maybe not, maybe yes. So Rav explains it again. I have a kavachomer. The milah should push off tsaras. Why? Because milah overrides Shabbos, and Shabbos overrides tsaras. So certainly milah should override tsaras. And the Gemara pushes it off and says, no, perhaps tsaras is more chomer than Shabbos, which pushes off, as we had in the first kavachomer. Tsaras pushes it off Shabbos, which pushes off Shabbos, gets pushed off by avodah. So certainly tsaras is more chomer than Shabbos, and the Gemara says that's why I need a pasuk basar to say that milah pushes off tsaras. Another pshat in the Gemara is the reason why milah pushes off tsaras is because a bris milah is a mitzvah saseh, it's a positive. Not to take off tsaras is a lois saseh. We always have the klal esse doicha lois saseh. The Gemara pushes that off and says no, tsaras is not only a lois asay, but it's also an asay. So one asay pushes off another asay, they wash each other out, and then you remain with a lois asay, and therefore you shouldn't be able to do a bris milah where there's tsaras. And that's why I need the word basar. Abaye says, it says the word basar that you perform bris milah and tsaras by a baby on its 8th day. Milah bizmanai. It also says a pasuk on a kid or someone that's more than 13 years old, on a gadol. The Torah warns him, if you don't do bris milah, you'll have karas. But how do I know a benoni, a child that's from 9 days old all the way up to 13 years old? How do I know that bris milah pushes off tsaras? Says Abaye, it's a memetzino, tzad shava. Just like you see that these two, a katan and a gadol, both perform bris milah and pushes off tsaras, so too a beinoni. Rava says a different pshat. Rava says the whole pasuk that tells us that you perform a bris milah with tsaras on a katan bizmanoi is not necessary, because I have a kavachomer. So once I have a kavachomer, this is im einoyin lekan. I have an extra pasuk tneu inyan for a completely different thing, which is a katan that's from 9 days old all the way to 13. And what is the kavachomer? You see that milah overrides Shabbos, and Shabbos overrides tsaras. So certainly milah should override tsaras. Well, you'll tell me that tsaras maybe is more powerful than Shabbos, because you see that tsaras pushes off avodah, which avodah pushes off Shabbos. But as we said before, it's not the pshat that tsaras is more powerful than Shabbos. It's just that if you take off the tsaras, the person still has to go to the mikvah, and he can't perform the avodah anyways. Well, I have a case, says the Gemara, where he doesn't have to go to the mikvah. What if it's a tsaras that's tar? It's a tsaras on the entire body. So the Gemara says, this that a asay pushes off a lois asay is only in a case where they happen simultaneously. Like when you do a bris milah and you're taking off the tsaras at the same second, or you're wearing tzitzis that have shatnas, wool tchelas, together with a beged that's linen. But over here, you want to take off the tsaras and only later perform the avodah. That doesn't happen. Have a wonderful day.